Welcome, everyone, to today's live webinar by Human Synergistics, Elevate Leadership, Team Collaboration, and Performance. I am your host, Susan, and we'll quickly go through some housekeeping items before we begin. Allison Johns and Mary McCulloch are both directors on the Human Synergistics Solutions team and work closely with clients to increase constructive behaviors and effectiveness at all levels within all types of organizations. They also work extensively with internal and external consultants to help lay the groundwork for effective leadership team development. Without further ado, let me pass this over to Mary so we can begin the webinar.
Great. Thank you, Susan. It was wonderful to see so many new names and so many familiar names joining us today. Welcome to everyone. Today we're going to be covering the following: leadership development trends for 2020 and the coming decade, several key benefits for cultivating your leadership teams, a walkthrough of our flexible 4-phase leadership team effectiveness program, and 2 customized examples of how this flexible program can look in practice. Let's get started with our first poll today. Oops. We're going to give about 30 seconds here. I see a lot of responses, which is great. Few more seconds.
I'm going to close the poll now, Mary.
Great. All right. So looking at these poll results, here we are. All right, let's look at this. So isn't this interesting? So the highest is silos and different agendas. That appears to be a challenge many of you are encountering. The next one was trust concerns at 36%. And then it looks like, actually, personality conflict issues at 39%. So, and then it's not a priority at 25. So we can see there are various challenges that we all encounter when we're trying to embark on leadership team development. So very interesting. Thank you all for participating. Let's move to providing you with a number of trends that we've noticed. These trends, they've been emerging this year in 2020 and will probably be around for this decade. And we chose a number of these because they really resonated with us regarding leadership development. So first, the leadership development programs that many of us are aware of use 360 tools, and often it's more of a one and done approach, right? You deliver the feedback and move on. However, we all know that changing behavior is not that simple. A new focus is on supporting leaders in sustaining behavior change for the long term. And to sustain that change, we all know that it's important to have ongoing coaching and action planning to support and reinforce new behaviors. Second, traditionally, senior executives or new emerging leaders receive most of the budget around leadership development. And we're seeing a shift that will continue to show that leaders at all levels of the organization need to receive development support so they can engage their teams and become more effective. So group coaching offers an efficient and cost-effective way to provide development opportunities to all levels of leaders. So for example, pairing one coach to 10 leaders really streamlines the process, enables both individual and group learning, and has the added benefit of leaders learning from each other. And I would be very curious to hear how many of you are already and have been doing a lot of group coaching. The third and final trend we wanted to highlight today is that we're all familiar with the notion that people join organizations but leave because of their boss. And part of that, I think, is because there's always been a disconnect between the behavioral expectations for leaders and then what the cultural norms and expectations are that are being encouraged. So a key shift is to ensure and align that culture and engagement efforts are aligned with leadership development. And we see this as a really important shift that's occurring. So this alignment will enable leaders to focus on building their own desired behaviors and strategies for themselves and their teams, but also connects and supports the broader organizational goals and outcomes. Now let's look at 4 key benefits for cultivating leadership teams. 1, build a strong foundation for how leaders practice accountability and how they want to engage with each other. So often, leaders start working together and never really take the time to say, what are our guiding principles? What are our operating modes of how we want to work together so we can be most effective? 2, provide leaders with insights and strategies for increasing individual and team effectiveness. Gaining new insights and learning about what works and what doesn't work as an individual and as a team is so critical for helping groups grow and change. 3, engage leaders to understand their impact on organizational culture. And 4, inspire others by modeling effective leadership behaviors. These are just a handful of benefits, and there are likely many more that all of us could add. I'm now going to shift gears and hand it over to Allison, who will introduce our framework.
Thanks, Mary. I'm excited for you all to join us today and to be able to share our new leadership team effectiveness program. And as Mary mentioned, this is a framework for really uniting leadership team members on a journey towards greater effectiveness. And the structure is for an intact team to become more effective as a team, as well as in their own individual development. So this program provides 360 feedback and along with other tools to develop those personal styles, leadership strategies, and performance. So you can see up on the screen now, we have this 4-phase approach that we've been using and may look familiar to those of you who are familiar with our Culture Quick Start program. We're taking this 4-phase approach at all levels of the organization to really focus on understanding the why, building a baseline, creating change, and especially focusing on learning and sustaining. So our 4-phase approach can be rolled out to multiple teams simultaneously or to one team and cascaded throughout the organization. Because leaders are role models to others in the broader organization and directly impact the culture, many organizations choose to start at the top or with the senior most level leaders within the organization. But it's important to empower those team members as well as all levels of leadership and focus on their development. So we're getting greater momentum throughout the organization. So on the following slides, we'll be detailing what can be included in each of these 4 phases. So starting with phase 1, we're focused on understanding the why and looking more at the discovery and alignment. So in this phase includes purpose. So we really want to understand what are those underlying outcomes and purposes that this team or the team that you're working with is looking to improve so that we can make this very clear and at the forefront of all of the work to come. So if we think back on the poll question of where we started, what were some leadership team development challenges? We've got silos, personality conflict issues, or trust concerns. So we would take, if that is the issue, and really focus the program around that specific topic or challenge that we're trying to overcome with this team. So this may be known prior to this work starting, or we spend some time with the team to really have some deeper initial discussions with the group as a whole, as well as the individual team members. So this is really critical in the design and customization of the steps that follow as we go through the additional steps and the phases. The second item included in phase one is around education. So the team members are participating in an educational session to gain new insights into the factors that make a leadership team effective. So we're providing more context around what effective and ineffective leadership really means, as well as the context of some of the tools and resources that will be used throughout the program. So with this step, we're really laying the groundwork for developing more operating principles around communication and building trust for the group as we continue into the next phases. So Mary, I'll actually hand it back to you to take us through phases 2 and 3, and I'll jump back in at 4.
Perfect. Thanks, Allison. So here we are. Phase 2 is about building a baseline, and this includes enlisting and engaging, measuring, and analyzing. Individual assessment is the main focus of phase 2, and that is where our individual development journeys begin. We recommend incorporating a well-suited 360 assessment to provide each leader with quality feedback and provide benchmarking for tracking progress. So a well-suited assessment takes into account the individual and team experiences with 360 feedback. If they haven't had very much experience with 360s, you may want to select an example of our tools, our styles tools. Whereas if they're quite experienced with 360s, our impact tools can be a very good fit. We have listed here 4 of our flagship 360 tools. All of them work well for this program, but I will say this framework is designed to be flexible so that any behavior-based 360 would work fine. Now moving to phase 3, this is around creating change and includes debriefing results, building capability, and initiate planning. The first part of phase 3 is the team development plan. And this is where the leadership team journeys begin. And having done the individual 360s, what's ideal here is incorporating the composite of the 360s so that you can look at the team. What are the trends? What are the patterns showing up for the team? And this is where you can provide insights on how the team is currently and collectively affecting each other. Now, like I said earlier, any behavior-based composite could work. We have a couple of additional points here that relate to our leadership impact composite report, where it connects leaders to the ideal impact that they'd like to have as a team to maximize their effectiveness, which is so powerful because it gives them their vision, their direction of where they want to go. And then it also identifies the strategies needed to support their purpose and create that more constructive team style. So it really gives them the roadmap and pathway to achieve the development plan that they set for themselves. The second part of the phase 3 is the individual development plan. So we've done the 360, we've started a team development, which we think is a critical component of this whole structure because so often that's not looked at. And then we move to the individual development plan. And this is where you would want to begin the one-on-one coaching, but especially after the team development plan is in place, because creating the individual development plan is going to be much more meaningful and valuable if they can then also link their priorities at the individual level to the team priorities, and then ultimately these lead to the priorities for the organization. And in our experience, working with many organizations and leaders, development plans are key to creating successful change at all levels. So I'm going to now hand it on back to you, Allison, to take it from here.
Thanks, Mary. We'll round out the 4 phases now with phase 4 by focusing on how we learn and sustain the work that we've done thus far through phases 1 through 3. So in the first component of phase 4, this is where we're looking more at the team development, implementation, and coaching. And this is where it really differentiates and goes back to the trends that Mary was sharing earlier, that it's not just a one and done program or that it's focused just on the individual's development rather than the team. So this is where we want to go back and really focus on what was decided based on the team plan and keep the momentum going by doing more pulse checks, practicing the accountability, and developing new behaviors so that we're operating in a more constructive way as a team. So this is really to continue that work of the development plan, and it may be on areas around communication or trust or how we do goal setting together so that we're not operating in those silos or having conflicting issues or plans. So it really allows practice and additional insights of how to improve as a group and track those improvements throughout the program. And these ongoing team sessions can be either done on a monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly basis. That's really decided more so by the team as well as the consultant who is working with them through this program. Another tool that may be used in these sessions is our group styles inventory as a way to track, as we've been focusing on moving towards those more constructive styles as we work through a problem or a various scenario, are we actually utilizing those constructive behaviors with each other? And where are there still opportunities for improvement? So, how do we keep that top of mind and keep working together as a group to evolve more effectively? Now, we want to focus on that continued team development, but we also want to do ongoing individual coaching. So this continues that one-on-one that started with their individual development plan, but it continues to support the individual team members on their development journeys. So we want the team to continue to check in, but it's also vital for those individuals and to think especially how they're connecting back to the overall team plan and tracking in terms of the specific areas that they need to focus on their development. So once again, this can be decided by the individuals and the consultant that they're working with. So it may be on a bi-monthly or quarterly basis for more ongoing engagement and development focus for the individuals. The next piece is a simulation. And this can be a more optional component of the framework. Where we see a lot of value is incorporating our coach exercise or co-achieving exercise, which is a business simulation that really focuses more so on cooperation and achievement. So it looks at the current approaches that are being used to motivate as well as discusses team dynamics. It enhances the ability of individuals and teams to strategize, plan, set goals, and execute action plans for achievement, as well as promotes more effective management and leadership approaches. So this is a nice way to check in based back on the team plan as well as the individual development plans. It's a nice other way to pulse or do a check-in of how we're moving towards those more constructive behaviors and skills. So the team is challenged to identify first on an individual basis and then collaboratively the most appropriate approaches to coaching, goal setting, and motivating others through the exercise. So it really helps to reinforce and highlight their assumptions, beliefs, and attitudes as leaders. So this simulation is a nice option because it is normed more specifically or more effective for leaders and managers, but they may also want to use another simulation, possibly a survival simulation, to take them out of their element, or another way that they're working towards a problem that they're solving together to practice those behaviors and think more in that constructive and effective mindset. Now, the last component of phase 4 is around the journey, progress, and evaluation. So ideally, we want to be staying with this team for at least a year to be able to remeasure the results. So this uh, would actually do a remeasure of the 360 so they could once again see their group composite as well as their individual results to be able to track the progress and connect it back to the performance of this team. So it's helping to show the relationship between the quality of leadership and the outcomes. So based on the results that we get from this remeasure and we're able to track the progress, it helps the team then, because this isn't a one and done, and we know that development, it never stops. Once we get to a certain point, we're done and we never need to work on our own development or team development again. It helps us to determine those next areas of focus. So we've gained the ability to trust each other a bit more. What else do we need to do to continue to be effective, as well as be those role models for the remainder of the organization? So this would be approximately 12 months after the original assessment that was completed, but the journey never ends. So it's a check, and then this team can continue to work on their development and effectiveness. So this wraps up the 4 phases, but we'd like to share a few examples of how teams have used this program as a way to structure their leadership development. So we'll first look at organization 1. This was an intact leadership team that was more of your senior leadership team members. So their focus, if we look at phase 1, the purpose was really to align them as a team. They had begun efforts around leadership development in the past, taking some small steps, but this was a way to take them to that next level and provide further development. So in terms of education, we completed a 1-hour overview of effective leadership and how this tied back to the group and gave them an idea of where they were at. In phase 2, the assessment that was utilized was actually the leadership impact assessment, so that they could see the impact that they were having not only on each other, but as well as their direct reports and higher level managers, and compare that to the ideal impact that they wanted to have on the organization. In phase 3, the team development plan, that's where we focused and utilized that composite, as we were mentioning, and started there so that they could see the trends across the group in terms of what type of impact they were having within the organization. And here's where we were really able to zero in and focus on the elephant in the room, if you will, of the lack of trust. They were able to motivate and encourage their direct reports to behave in a more constructive way. And where the real challenge and opportunity was how they could impact each other, their peers, in a more constructive way. So this is where we zeroed in terms of the plan of how to build and create trust within this group. So as we went through their individual development plans, we always were connecting back to the theme of trust, but then we're able to zero in on some other key areas that they needed to focus on in terms of their individual development and where they may have some other opportunities. So in phase 4, they were actually in phase 4 right now. So we're in progress of some of those team development sessions of how to continue those conflict or conversations, I should say, around trust and other conflicts that are going on. They're determining if they'll be able to use the simulation or not. But each individual has had 2 to 3 ongoing coaching sessions. And then the plan is that they will do that remeasure to be able to track the progress that they've made as a group and where they need to further refine that work. So this is one example, and we have one other example to share with you. We'll call this organization 2. Another fairly senior level group of leaders within an organization. Now, their purpose was a bit different because they are a new team coming together. So the organization is going through many changes, and they wanted to focus on how they could really align as a new team and be role models for the rest of the organization. With their education, we focused more specifically on problem solving and effective behaviors to give them more of a context on what and how that relates to leadership. Phase 2, for building a baseline, they chose to actually complete the lifestyles inventory, or LSI, looking more at their own thinking as well as how others are perceiving their behavior styles. So in phase 3, with the creating change, we had a full 1-day session with them where we worked through the group around team dynamics and utilized the composite report. They are now working on their individual development plans with, once again, thinking through the trust as well as the dynamics. Because this is a new team, it's now actually building trust as opposed to the previous group where trust was broken. It's how do we work and trust each other as we develop as a new team and make changes within the organization. So for phase 4, they actually utilized a different simulation than the coach. They utilized a survival simulation and the group styles inventory to be able to track some of those changes and see where they're going. And this is where the customization and flexibility comes in, where right now they're in a phase, they've gotten to a point where they're working on their development plans, but now they're deciding what additional work they want to do. So this is where there is that customization and flexibility that we just want to reiterate that's available with this program and framework. So we've shared a lot of information with you on the structure and flow of the Leadership Team Effectiveness Program, as well as what some examples may look like. So I want to pause now and see what questions you all have and how we can address those for you.
Thanks, Allison and Mary. I feel like those examples that you just gave really helped pull that whole framework together, and that was really helpful. So I'm sure the participants felt the same way. I do see some questions coming in, so thank you to the attendees for sending in those questions. And while we wait for a few more questions to come in, I want to launch a quick poll question again, if you guys don't mind participating in. Just want to get an idea of some of the aspects of the framework that Allison and Mary just went through that you guys might find might see elevating your leadership team development program, or if you might use all 4 together, or what do you see as being the most beneficial just from this brief description that Allison and Mary gave you. And I know that we are getting through to some questions. We are actually getting quite a few. So I'm going to let Allison and Mary just jump in and start answering those now, and I'll leave the poll question up for a few more seconds. Mary, Allison, do you guys want to start answering some questions?
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm back. So one question that came in was, so to clarify, you would have the individual assessments completed, but not start coaching until after the team development plan has been finalized. And that is correct. We don't want to get them going on their own paths too early. We really want the focus is more on the group dynamics initially. So starting first with the group and getting that feedback based on the general themes and what they're seeing before they get into their individual reports and go through the coaching and their own development plans. Another question that came in was around describing the GSI in more detail. So we can happily share more information in our follow-up around the group styles inventory, but just to give you a quick snapshot of that, that is another survey tool that we have available both online and in paper format that is an in-the-moment assessment. So a team or multiple teams maybe working together to solve a problem, such as one of our simulation exercises. And after they have solved the problem together, but before they necessarily know their results, they go through and they complete the group styles inventory to look at the group styles that were used. So it's giving you this in the moment snapshot of what types of behaviors and experiences the team was using, as well as how that relates back to the synergy of the team. It's a really powerful in the moment assessment with not only leadership development, but with also culture development. Let's see.
Allison, I'll just add to that. It also incorporates our circumplex model. So it reinforces what they've learned, possibly if they've used an individual assessment or if they're even using culture assessments. And the beauty is it's part of our integrated system using our circumplex.
Thanks, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
We will be sharing this PowerPoint and the recording, so that will definitely be available afterwards. And then another question that came in was around, does the 4-phase require accreditation? And no, it does not. It only requires accreditation if you're utilizing any of our 360 assessments. We do require accreditation in those to be able to utilize that. But this is a framework that you have and can use as well in your practices or within your organization. And it has the flexibility and customization options that we were mentioning earlier. Another question was, do you have a platform to train the trainer if you have already started the consulting process through the OCI, OEI tools? Interesting question. Not so much. I will say we're happy to support you and work with you and share our experiences around this. We have not developed a train the trainer specifically though, but can share resources or other learnings that we have had through implementing this program and to be able to connect it back. But I will say that this is a excellent way to tie in if you are doing a larger culture initiative, giving you a framework to do, because we know culture and leadership go hand in hand. They're really two sides of the same coin. To have a framework for implementing some of that leadership development to connect back to the broader cultural work that's being done. Let's see, another question. How effective would this be for a distributed, I'm guessing dispersed leadership team? I would say this would still be effective and may help them even more, because if we go back to some of those challenges around silos or other priorities of really helping them to gain that alignment. So I would definitely encourage you to utilize this. Mary, do you have anything to add around that?
Yeah, no, I was thinking the same thing. I think it could be quite beneficial because it also provides a structure and it will encourage the team to be coming together through their team development on a regular basis, which encourages communication, that helps with trust, and so on and so forth. So I think it actually could be quite powerful with dispersed teams. You have to adjust it, work with technology and whatnot, but I think it could actually really support the team coming together.
And because there are many resources now too that you can work with virtual teams, and I hope I'm interpreting this question correctly, but to get them functioning in a way that provides more collaboration or utilizing video and things like that, so that they're having more scheduled check-ins rather than more of your standard monthly or weekly meetings that you have as a team just about agendas and priorities. This is really focusing more on what we need to do as a team to be more effective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you for confirming that it was dispersed. Great. Um, The other thing, or another question that came in was, do I have to complete all of these steps to do the program? And no, you do not necessarily have to do all 4 steps. We do encourage you to maintain the momentum with the group, as well as to get them focused on a remeasure and be able to track the changes that they have made as a team. But that's where
Mm-hmm.
you can customize and be flexible in terms of, you may just start first with phases 1 and 2, or phases 1 through 3, and then determine how phase 4 would look.
Mm-hmm. Allison, I'd like to add to that because I think
Yeah.
this is a perfect time to mention that
Mm.
the other benefit of this framework is that it enables, in addition to just providing a flexible structure, it enables, especially if you're an external consultant practitioner, a way to have an engagement, a structured engagement with your clients and lengthen those engagements. So instead of committing to a shorter program, but you could actually commit to a 12 year, wouldn't we all love that? A 12-month program. But it could be, so it enables and provides a structure of doing these various components so that there is reason to have a longer engagement with a client and obviously ultimately provide more value in the end.
Mhm. Absolutely. Another question, while I see we're getting close to time, but how does the price differ based on length of program and size of the team? So that really does vary on the type of commitment that the team is willing to make. So depending on the amount of team development and individual development sessions. So that's where you have the flexibility as the consultant to frame your consulting structure. Ballparks of these programs, depending on the amount of work that's involved, it can range anywhere from 15,000 or all the way up to 50,000, depending on the size of the team and the engagement. So if price is a barrier, that's where it may be helpful to do it in more of that phased approach, so they get that initial commitment and momentum, and then they're on board and wanting to do more.